He looked the President of the United States in the eye and prepared to sacrifice everything. "I can't do it anymore, sir," the agent said, his voice cracking just enough to betray the storm raging inside him. "I can't be this man." Before we get into this incredible moment, tell us in the comments, what is the single most important quality a true leader must possess? The morning air over the Capitol was electric, buzzing not just with the crispness of early summer, but with the thrum of pure, unadulterated power. It was the day of the parade, the big one, a day President Donald Trump had envisioned for years, a celebration of American strength on a scale not seen in generations. Tanks were polished to a mirror shine, fighter jets were on standby, and thousands of soldiers stood ready to march down streets lined with cheering patriots. In a makeshift command post set up in a fortified tent behind the main stage, Trump was a whirlwind of energy. Dressed in a sharp, dark navy overcoat over his suit, a golden-yellow tie knotted perfectly at his collar, he moved with the restless energy of a general before a decisive battle. He scanned reports, barked orders to aides, and absorbed every detail, his mind a steel trap for logistics and optics. Today was about projecting strength, not just to the world, but to his own people. "The crowd estimates are through the roof, sir," an aide named Mark said, barely able to contain his excitement. "Biggest turnout for a Flag Day event in history." Trump gave a curt nod, a flicker of a smile playing on his lips. "They're here for our soldiers, Mark. They're here for America." Everything was perfect. Until it wasn't. Mark lingered after delivering the latest crowd report, his posture stiffening. The president noticed it instantly. He could read a room, and the people in it, better than anyone. "What is it?" Trump asked, his tone shifting from celebratory to clinical. "Spit it out." Mark swallowed hard. "Sir, it's about ICE agent Hideo Tanaka." Trump's eyes narrowed. He knew the name. Tanaka was a hero, a third-generation American whose family history was a testament to the American dream. He was a decorated officer, tough as nails, with a record of high-risk arrests that was legendary within the agency. More importantly, he was scheduled to be on stage in less than an hour, to be honored by the president himself as a symbol of the unwavering dedication of federal law enforcement. "What about him?" Trump pressed. "He submitted his resignation, sir, effective immediately." Mark braced for the explosion. "He says he's had a crisis of conscience, something about the raids in Los Angeles last week. He's refusing to come on stage." The air in the tent went still. A resignation was one thing. A public rejection on the day of his parade by the very man he intended to champion was another. It was a political grenade with the pin pulled. The media would have a field day. It would be a crack in the armor of strength he was so carefully constructing. But Trump didn't explode. The fiery rage his enemies always expected was replaced by a cold, focused calm. He looked past his aide, his gaze distant, as if calculating a dozen moves ahead on a chessboard only he could see. "Where is he?" Trump asked, his voice low and firm. "He's backstage, sir, in the personnel area. He's waiting to turn in his gear." "Leave us," Trump commanded the other aides in the room. He looked at Mark. "Take me to him." Now, the walk backstage was a journey from one world to another. They left the bright, buzzing energy of the command post and entered the cavernous, shadowy world behind the grandstands. Massive black speakers and a tangled web of cables and steel rigging loomed over them. In the distance, the muffled roar of the growing crowd was a constant, deep hum, the sound of a waiting beast. There, standing alone near a stack of equipment cases, was Agent Hideo Tanaka. He was exactly as the image in his file suggested. He had a strong, athletic build encased in the black tactical vest with the bold white letters ICE emblazoned across his chest. An American flag patch was stitched to one sleeve, just above his sergeant's stripes. His hair was cut in a sharp, military-style fade. He wasn't looking at the stage or the crowd. He was staring at the worn asphalt, his expression a mask of stoic resolve, but his jaw was clenched tight with an emotion he couldn't quite hide. Trump dismissed his aide with a wave of his hand. He approached the agent alone, the most powerful man in the world, and a man who had just given up all of his. Tanaka looked up, his eyes meeting the president's. There was no defiance in his gaze, only a profound, gut-wrenching sadness. "Agent Tanaka," Trump began, his voice surprisingly soft, devoid of accusation. "My aide tells me you're leaving us." Tanaka nodded, his throat working. "Yes, Mr. President. The timing is inconvenient," Trump said, studying the agent's face. "You're supposed to be up on that stage. A hero. People need to see heroes like you." This is where the agent's composure finally broke. A flicker of raw pain crossed his face. He reached into his vest, not for a weapon, but for a small laminated photograph. He held it out for the president to see. It was a picture of a smiling woman with 2 young children, a boy and a girl, clinging to her happily. "With all due respect, sir," Tanaka said, his voice quiet but intense. "This is why I have to leave." He looked from the photo to the president. "I joined ICE to protect families, my family, families like mine. We go after criminals, traffickers, predators. That's the job. I believed in that job." He paused, taking a shaky breath. "But last week, in Los Angeles, it was different. We were following orders. Good people, sir, not criminals. Just scared. I saw a little girl who looked just like my daughter, crying for her father. And I was the one. I was the reason." His gaze fell. "I looked at my hands, and I didn't recognize the man they belonged to. I can't do it anymore, sir. I can't go home and look my own kids in the eye, knowing I'm the reason another child is crying themselves to sleep. It's costing me my soul." The confession hung in the air between them, raw and honest. The distant roar of the crowd seemed to fade away. It was just 2 men in the shadows, grappling with the weight of the nation. Trump was silent for a long moment. He looked at the photo in Tanaka's hand, then back at the agent's tormented face. He didn't argue. He didn't lecture. He simply listened. Then he moved closer and placed a hand on Agent Tanaka's shoulder. "You think you're the only one?" Trump said, his voice a low, confidential rumble. "You think I don't feel the weight? You think I sleep soundly every night? Every decision I make, every single one, affects millions of people. Some are helped, some are hurt. That is the terrible math of leadership. There is no perfect answer. There is no clean choice." He leaned in closer, his gaze locked on Tanaka's. "You see that little girl crying, and your heart breaks. It should. It means you're a good man. But you are seeing one frame of a very, very big picture. You see a family in pain. I have to see the 10 families down the street that are now safer. The family whose business can now hire a legal citizen, because the wage floor isn't being destroyed. The family that won't fall victim to the crime that flourishes in the shadows of illegal economies." He squeezed the agent's shoulder gently. "Your job isn't to be cruel. Your job is to be the shield. A shield is hard, it's heavy, it gets dented and scratched. It stands between the things we love and the chaos that wants to tear it all down. You're not the man causing the tears. You're the man standing in the gap, making the impossible choice so that millions of other fathers don't have to." Trump pointed to the photo in Tanaka's hand. "You think you're protecting them by quitting. Who protects them when the shield is thrown down? Who holds the line when good men like you walk away because the job is hard? The chaos doesn't care about your conscience. It will pour right over you. It will swallow them." He let his words sink in. He wasn't commanding the agent. He was reasoning with him, man to man. He was reframing the agent's pain, not as a symptom of corruption, but as a badge of honor, the price of a sacred duty. "Your soul isn't being lost, Agent Tanaka," Trump said, his voice ringing with conviction. "It's being forged. In fire. Just like this country was. Don't throw that away. Don't let them win. Stand with me. Be the hero they need to see today. Be the shield your family is counting on." He held his gaze for a final, powerful moment before stepping back. The choice was made. The argument was over. He had laid out the stakes. From the stage, a voice boomed over the speakers, announcing the start of the ceremony. The roar of the crowd swelled into a deafening ovation. Trump gave Tanaka a final, firm nod. "I'm going out there. I hope to see you." He turned and walked toward the light, a solitary figure moving toward the heart of the storm. Agent Hideo Tanaka stood alone in the shadows, the president's words echoing in his ears. He looked down at the photograph in his hand, at the smiling faces of his wife and children. The shield. He wasn't the villain in someone else's story. He was the protector in his own. He slowly slid the photograph back into his vest, placing it over his heart. He straightened his shoulders, the weight of his gear feeling less like a burden and more like armor once again. He took a deep breath, his resolve hardening into steel, and began walking toward the stage. What do you think Agent Tanaka will remember most about that conversation for the rest of his life? Share your thoughts with us in the comments. And if you enjoy stories about leadership and conviction, be sure to subscribe for more.